Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the NPA Process, Joel Young.
Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young, and we're up to episode 10, double figures, woohoo! So welcome. If you're brand new and you've found us in Christmassy mode. So fabulous. It's lovely. I welcome you here with open heart. And all of you regular listeners, I love you. I love that you spend the time with me on a Tuesday or whenever you listen to it, wherever you listen to it, in the car, doing the dishes, in your ears, in your headphones, who knows where you listen to it, but you can let me know. As always, I encourage you to leave me a message. You can go to the new website. If you didn't hear last week's episode, I have set up the beabrillianthuman.com website where you'll find the show notes. You can find transcriptions. It's an easy place for you to find everything, and I'll any links that I refer to will be on those show notes, and there's the general resources that I do refer to on a regular basis will be there too. And if you're looking for any particular episode and you know the number of it, you can just do beabrillianthuman.com/number of episode. In this case, it would be beabrillianthuman.com/10 will take you straight to the show notes for this page. So as I'm recording this, it is still December. And last week was the first week of December, and I decided, and I told you that we'd be doing Christmas-themed podcasts this month to celebrate the festive season. So we're continuing with that today. And on the note of the Christmassiness, I thought I would leave you another one of my songs at the end of this episode. So make sure you stay after the moo. This one is a Christmas song, which I wrote back in about 2013. And I thought it would be quite fun to write a song which was, and I was aiming for that sort of trashy, catchy pop Christmas song. I think I kind of nailed it with the trashy, and it's a bit catchy. So if you're curious to listen, it's called Christmas Time Again. And it's actually kind of on the topic of, it sort of looks at the cynicism of, oh no, it's Christmas, but you just got to find love. And love of everything, not just romantic love. So that song will be at the end after the moo. So stay tuned if you want to hear Christmas Time Again by Joel Young, otherwise known as Portal 29 when it comes to the dancey end of the spectrum. So today we are looking at 14 festive FUBARs you shouldn't take personally. Now, you may be someone who's going, FUBARs? What's a FUBAR? FUBAR is I think it's called an acronym, isn't it? A series of letters that mean words independently. And it basically means effed up beyond all recognition. I think it's originally a military thing, FUBAR. Who knows? But it had great alliteration, 14 festive FUBARs. So I thought I'd go with it for this one. So, and these are situations that I believe it would be wise not to take personally. So before we get into the 14 festive FUBARs, I like saying that, don't I? Let's talk a little bit about not taking things personally or taking things personally and what that means. So as you undoubtedly know, if you've listened to this at all, I am Joel Young, the creator and custodian of NPA, which stands for non-personal awareness. And it all begins with the NPA process. But I haven't really gone into the whole taking things personally thing. So let me just give you a very, very kind of a potted version of how I look at taking things personally. I think for the most part, taking things personally is sort of looked at through a fairly superficial filter. I've discovered since NPA came along back in 2007 that in a way, taking things personally is one of the sort of root causes of suffering, because it really speaks to identity. It speaks to sort of saying that's me, that is. So in a way, taking things personally is, I mean, it is that like you take something on and sort of we make it about us when it's really not. So, and here's the interesting thing about that. If you say it's about me or you take it on in that way, it's a bit like you enter Velcro world. I like to call it Velcro world. Velcro, that's hooks and loops, and when you put them together, they stick, and they're very, very tricky to pull apart. So when you go around and you're taking things on and making it about you, you're in this Velcro world. So you're hanging on to things, and they sort of weigh you down. It's like if you're someone who takes things personally a lot, you probably recognize this. You go to the office in the morning and you come back and you feel like, you got this Velcro suit on, and all other people's fluff just kind of sticks to you, and you come home with this like a big fluff ball, wondering why you're knackered, and everything's weighing you down. So in a way, taking things personally, it sort of taking it on gives you a sense of having the weight and the stress of doing that. And an interesting thing about it is when you do take something on, when you identify with something, when you said that's me, that is, which is what we sort of subtly do underneath the surface when we take things personally, there's a way that you begin to express it. Now, I don't want to go deep into how that works from an energetic perspective, but just take my word for it. As you take on an energy, when you take some idea on, when you take some opinion, some sort of belief, if you like, about an idea, then you'll begin to express it in some form. Not always obviously, but it will sort of live its life through you. So actually remembering to not take things personally is a very freeing perspective. You sort of go from that Velcro world, but everything's sticking to you, to kind of Teflon world, like the pans, Teflon pans where non-stick. So things can just sort of slide off. And it's not about not experiencing life, quite the opposite, really, especially from an NPA perspective. But it does mean that things don't stick to you and hang around. They can just sort of pass through or just slide off you. However, as it's the Christmas season, there's those stressy moments, in those stressy moments where you could probably most benefit from the awareness that it's not personal. It can actually be very challenging to connect, which is where, of course, the NPA process can really help you. So one thing that I'm going to strongly encourage you to do, if you haven't done it already, is go and download the NPA process sheet. It's absolutely free. You can get it via the beabrillianthuman.com website. You can literally go to beabrillianthuman.com/NPA sheet. That's November Papa Alpha sheet. And that will get you to a place where you can just give me your email address and I will send you the sheet. And I'm also going to recommend, especially on the back of today's episode, when you do download the sheet, one thing that happens is, I send you the sheet for free. You don't have to do anything else. But you do get offered the NPA basic training at a very good discount. And I recommend that you get that. If that's like your one gift to yourself this Christmas, then go get the NPA basic training. And it will kind of, for one thing, it will really share with you something that I'm not going to go into today on this podcast, but why fundamentally nothing is personal. And more importantly, perhaps for today, is how to use the NPA process, which is, by the way, the simplest, most effective way I know to, on the fly, stop the stress of taking things personally. So how cool is that? So go do it. beabrillianthuman.com/NPA sheet. Do it now, or at least at the end. So my list of 14 festive FUBARs, sort of what I'm doing here is highlighting sort of some intense opportunities we have to take things personally and stress out that can happen over the busy festive season. So it's kind of a list of some common situations where you might be tempted to make it personal. And the list is sort of put out as a set of invitations. They're really invitations in these moments to remember that it's not personal. And sort of having that thought, it's not personal, preloaded into your awareness will help you feel much freer and easier and sort of able to entertain a genuine smile throughout the festivities. So you can think of it as preventative medicine. So as you hear these thoughts, these ideas, these situations, I'm going to go into each situation and offer some perspectives for each. You can drink in the notion that you can easily remember that it's not personal if these situations occur. And by the way, one of the great gifts of NPA as a practice, so if you do the NPA process a lot, what people find is it sort of wakes up that remembering inside of them. so it can wake up the sort of that. It's like you wear your "it's not personal" glasses. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's not personal. So it becomes much more available, which is an incredibly powerful set of glasses, to use the metaphor, a very powerful perspective to have very awake in and alive in you. So let's get to those festive FUBARs, shall we? So this is a list of two halves, I think I'm going to do it as. So I'll do the run-up to Christmas, first of all, and then after that, we'll look at Christmas Day and Boxing Day itself. So let's begin the list. In the run-up to Christmas, number 1. So when you're jostled in the supermarket aisles, remember it's not personal. So I don't know if I know anybody who hasn't experienced this. Going to a supermarket around the time of Christmas, it can be a touch busy, can't it? And one of the things that I see often is when it's so busy and packed, and there's, the shopping trolley is sort of being pushed around, and there's kids screaming, and someone just kind of rams into you or jostles or cuts you up in the aisle. It's very easy there to kind of take it personally and to get really tangled up in, they shouldn't do that, or they should behave better, that kind of thing. So it's good to remember that, fundamentally, it's not personal. They're not probably thinking about you at all. And you could argue, well, they should be noticing. They should be thinking, I'm very caring and very considerate of other people. But not everybody is. They're in their own worlds, and that's kind of the point, really. Being in their own world, that they kind of they probably accidentally did it, and then they didn't even notice perhaps that they banged into you. Either way, it's good to not take it personally, because again, if you take it personally, you're going to be doing the Velcro thing and attaching yourself to it. And you know what? Even if they are being deliberately shitty, I mean, let's face it, we've probably all seen someone in the supermarket, especially at that busy time, and they're just being pushy and all the rest of it. You still have a choice whether you take that on as taking that personally, like it's really about you. I mean, you could be anybody. They don't care that it's you or not you or somebody else. They're just in their own agenda. They're in their own thing. So when it comes to choice, and I'm going to kind of come back to this theme throughout this list, it's worth just taking a moment to think, that there's a choice here. Someone, rams you on the ankles. It's not pleasant. From behind, you turn around and they seem completely unapologetic. So you kind of have a choice there. You can take it personally and get into an internal fight. That takes you into Velcro world. It'll stick to you. What does that do to you? How does that make you feel? Is that kind or unkind to you? It's or you go, you know what, it's not personal. Yeah, it happened. And, you could even maybe say something. But if you're not taking it personally, you're not tied up, you're much freer to be at choice. And chances are the experiences, whether it's the slight ankle burn or whatever, will pass a lot quicker, a lot quicker because you're not holding on to it, which is an essence of not taking things personally. So number 2, shopping frenzy is in the air. Remember to not take it personally, because it's not personal. So that shopping frenzy thing in the run up to Christmas, it can be mad, can't it? Again, not just in the supermarket, but any high street you walk down is likely to be crazy with people. Plus, there's, all the internet and everything sort of bombarding you with, buy this for Christmas, buy this for Christmas. Your person of significance needs this. If you don't buy it for them, you don't love them. There's this shopping frenzy, and it's just in the air, and it's very easy, again, to get tangled up in that. So whether you're someone who fights it, I hate the commercialism of Christmas. You're just by fighting it, you're going to get tangled up in it. So it's going to affect you, and you express it in some way, even if it's being expressed as pure frustration or outrage or whatever it is. Or you might get tied up in it in a more positive way, which is that, you go into a shopping frenzy. Now, of course, the word frenzy itself doesn't imply someone who's sort of at peace and at choice, does it? So you can sort of bask in the weather of the frenzy rather than getting caught up in it, sort of almost not at choice, being bombarded by these hypnotic commercial messages. But fundamentally, it is actually it is like a buzz in the air. I mean, it's the nature of energy. In fact, I am slipping kind of into the area of why fundamentally nothing is personal. But there are this. It's like a broadcast of this frenzy. That doesn't mean that you have to tune into it. In fact, you kind of have to sort of take it personally, make it about you, connect to it, identify with it, in order to sort of tune in and therefore express it. So remember, it's just there in the air doesn't mean you have to tune it, in the same way that you don't have to listen to Death Metal FM, although I'm sure Death Metal FM is happening all around us right now. It's not personal any more than the frenzy of shopping is. So don't take it personally. Number three. So if someone sends harsh words your way, remember that fundamentally it's not personal. So again, in this busy period, there's a lot of stressed people around. Maybe someone sends some harsh words your way. Now, that could be sort of family, or it could be just a random person on the street. But these words coming your way, again, remember that they're not personal, because if you think about it, it's because that's an expression that comes from them, because they are tuned into some crappy energy. So they've taken something personally and are expressing it. So again, it's not about you, and you do have a choice about how you receive that. As ever, and I've been mentioning this throughout, again, the NPA process is freaking genius. If you find that you take something on, someone says something to you in a crappy way, and you take it on, you can use the NPA process to facilitate that letting go, so you don't hang on to it and drag it around with you for the rest of the day. Number 4, kind of tongue-in-cheek this one, but there is a point. So if you didn't get a snog at the Christmas party, remember, it's not personal. Lols. So maybe it's not about not getting a snog at the Christmas party. Maybe you shouldn't get a snog at the Christmas party. That's very bad. But it's really, I want to sort of talk about this one in terms of attraction, because the whole Christmas party thing and going out and all that kind of stuff, a lot of what goes on in people's minds, especially if they say haven't got a partner and they're single and, all that kind of thing. And then they might experience a sense of rejection, and then even convert that into sort of some major self-punishment. Well, normally it's a symptom of having taken the absence of those experiences personally. That's a mouthful, isn't it? So the thing is to investigate your openness to the experience. That may sound a bit like pointing the finger back at you in the situation, but there's two sides to it. Firstly, don't beat yourself up because someone didn't appreciate the wonders of you. That's not about you, because you are wonderful. You can't help but be wonderful. And there are people around that will look at you where they might not look at somebody else, and they'll look at you and go, "Good heavens, she's gorgeous," or "Good heavens, he's gorgeous," whichever way it is. And but one thing, if we take this a step deeper, it reminds me of a story from sort of the early days of NPA, really. And this is coming round to the idea of being open and available to those experiences. Because one way that we can take things personally is to say, that's not me. So if prior to the whole Christmas period, you've got this identification that you're unattractive, or that you are somehow you're the one that doesn't get the snog at the Christmas party when you really want one, you're sort of already putting those barriers up. An NPA can be used to allow you to sort of, include yourself in that vibration, to open your doors to things. So if you go down that route and think, well, maybe I'm just not available, there's something going on with me that means that my identity, which is putting out all of the energy for me, is closed down to it, then you can open the doors. So the story that I remember from the early days of NPA is Barry's story, and Barry had come to a group event. And there was a lot of talk about love in general and being open to love. And I'm going to make this a short version of the story, but basically he had his arms crossed and was like, it's bullshit. Love, everyone talks about love. I come to these things. I pay money to come to these things. And everyone talks about love. I don't even know what it means. So what I did was I said, well, it sounds like you've excluded yourself. You're Barry, the identification. The thing you've taken personally is the idea that I'm Barry who doesn't receive love, or no love comes to Barry. So we did a process which was simply to allow him to let in love. It was just an NPA process. And in the space of about 8 minutes, I mean, the process itself can take like, I don't know, 20 seconds to do the actual process, the words themselves, plus the setup, and then what happens afterwards. Now, mostly it will be just maybe a few seconds, maybe a couple of minutes is sort of quite common in terms of what you experience when you've said the words. It's a spoken word process. But in Barry's case, it took him about 8 minutes, because what it did in opening the doors, it was like opening a tsunami. And this wave of love came, pushing out a lot of anger, a lot of the old, because anger can be built up like a wall of resentment, sort of pushed it out through. And then as he finished that, he opened his eyes slowly and looked up, and everyone in that room really knew that in that moment, Barry had let in love. He'd opened his doors to love. And it's a very interesting thing, because his wife was sat next to him at the time, and she just mouthed me, "Thank you very much." It's like to be married to this guy who's not been available for love for all these years. So if you don't get a snog at the Christmas party, or there's some other form of absence of the attraction or the attracting someone that you want, consider that there may be some work to do on the identifications you've got going on. And also the other side of that coin, as I said, is maybe they're just not seeing your marvelousness. And that is not actually about you. It's about them and what are their rules, attractor patterns, and all of those things. All right. That brings us to number 5. So if you get a headache, remember it's not personal. So all this busyness, these shopping trolleys, and the frenzy in the air, I know a lot of people will sort of say, "Oh God, this Christmas thing, it's giving me a headache." Now, interesting thing, isn't it, to say that headaches are not personal? Well, it's my headache. But that whole thing of my headache, can you see how in a way you've made it yours? You've owned it. You've claimed it. You've made it. It's like, this is my headache. I own it. I'm going to cling to it. So really coming into the awareness that even headaches are not personal. If you think about a headache even as a broadcast that you're tuning into, then when you open into not taking it personally, it's not your headache. There's just the experience of headache passing through. There's a much lighter, softer hold on it, which means fundamentally it can pass a lot quicker. Now, NPA has some fantastic results with headaches. I've got loads of testimonials from people who've discovered that and some of them have had like sort of chronic headaches for years, and found that just by not taking it personally, by realizing it's not theirs, it's not part of them, it can actually just be held lightly and just pass by itself, because the body is an incredible device for healing itself, for allowing things to pass. So if you take it personally, you're basically giving yourself that sort of you're being Velcro to the sticky headache energy. So remember that even that headache is not personal. And finally, in the run-up, number 6. So if you're hit with a bug or a flu this Christmas, remember it's not personal. So in a sense, you might argue that's the same, and it sort of is. It is just like a headache in a sense. But I wanted to make the point that the broader point that we can get very identified with our illness. We become the victim. Why me? Why did I get the bug? It's not fair. These are symptoms that you've taken it very personally. I mean, you haven't been sort of singled out by some demonic force. I strike thee with a headache, or I strike thee with the flu. That's very, middle age, as in the Middle Ages, thinking really, and it's not really the case. So again, I encourage you with sort of whether it's bug or flu or whatever, to think of it in terms of the weather. It's like it is no more personal than the rain when you get the flu. And interesting to me that a lot of the sort of more dogmatic, spiritual, personal growth, healing-y kind of thoughts kind of encourage you in a way to take things personally. Oh, it's my fault because I've got shitty beliefs. Therefore, I have attracted a cold. And there is some truth in that. If you're tuning into it, you're taking it personally, it's going to hang around longer. But these things come and go. I think the gift of not taking things personally and getting out of the Velcro world is things can pass much quicker. That's why I say it's not about having no experience or dulling your emotions or stepping out of life. People often think of not taking something personally as sort of divorcing themselves from life's experience or disassociating. But it's really not about that. What it means is you can allow things to come, to be experienced and pass, but that cycle of experience can happen a lot quicker and easier. So that's the run-up. Let's have a little look at Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So Christmas Day, the big day. Let's get to number 7. So 7, if the kids don't express eternal gratitude for their presents, remember it's not personal. Kids are great, aren't they? They're actually great practice for not taking things personally. If you've got kids, you probably know that there's so many things kids can do that if you take it personally, being a parent is going to be really freaking stressful. But in terms of Christmas and the Christmas Day, they can get very tied up in their own excitement. So if they don't express that gratitude, like, I'm so grateful you got me that Twinkie toy. I don't know what that is. Tonka toy. That's showing my age there. It's okay. Just don't take it personally, because if you do, then what's going to happen is you're going to get into resistance and into fights with them, even if you do an internal struggle. And even if you get sort of hooked into it and then are able to let it go later, there's that moment of stress. So be pre-armed that it's okay if they don't say thank you, and be eternally grateful for that thing that you searched high and low. I mean, a classic one is like, back in the day when, you were searching for a Cabbage Patch doll and no one could find a Cabbage Patch doll. But if you were one of the people that queued up overnight to get a Cabbage Patch doll for your little honey, and then she just opens it and doesn't say thank you. It's easy to do the equation and take that really personally. Don't you know what I did for that? But they're just happy to have it. They're in their world. They just want it and they've got it. And they probably have no sense of what it's taken for you to earn the money for that present, to go find it, all the thought that's gone into it. It's okay. And by the way, just, it really comes down to sort of behavior and meaning. That's the fundamental thing that's going on if you're taking that kind of thing personally. So it's always good to look at the meanings that you give, or what it means about you when you give a gift and don't get the response that you're looking for. In that way, you are making it about you there. And also on this one, I'm not saying, by the way, don't educate your kids to sort of be polite. I'm encouraged. It's good to educate your kids to be polite, but it's very different. Again, a very different education you give to them. That it's good to say thank you. It's polite to say thank you, and people generally respond to a thank you. If that's coming from a place where you've taken it personally, how you express that to your kids is going to be very different and much more sticky than if you haven't taken it personally. You've just noticed it and gone, it might be quite good to mention that a thank you would be in order. Okay, number 8. So if you don't feel very well on the big day, remember, it's not personal. Oh, is he cheating again? He's using illness. Well, in a sense, I am. Hell, it's Christmas. I've given myself a gift. So we have covered illness and how there is a sense that it's kind of like weather, and not to take it personally. But a Christmas day itself, it can seem almost like all this effort gone into Christmas, and you don't feel very well on the day. But one thing that I think I wanted to say, and why I brought that up again here, is you might simply be exhausted. And you know what? It's okay to be exhausted. If you're someone, and especially we're going to get on to mothers soon, but for the mothers out there especially, I'm kind of being generalistic here. I know us fathers are getting better these days, but certainly mothers who take on that role, especially mothers with kids, all mothers have kids, but mothers with little kids who go out, do Christmas shopping and everything else that they've got to do. There's a lot that goes into that, and a lot of sense of pressure can happen. So exhaustion is kind of almost like a natural thing. So one thing also I brought this up for in this context is a way that you can use NPA specifically to help you out in this situation. And that is to ask you, so if you download the sheet, again, go to beabrillianthuman.com/NPA sheet, download the sheet. Question number 2 on that sheet as you set up the process is, what would you like to experience? The specific question on the sheet is, what are you not experiencing you'd like to allow to come? And then there's a response to that, and then you put whatever you find in the process, and it helps you bring that in, similar to what we talked about with Barry, bringing love in. So getting a sense of what you'd like to experience and then running that through the process sort of opens you to that. So sometimes, even if we're exhausted or not well, we can still look at, in the context of that, what would we like to allow to experience, and open our doors to it, which is very different to taking it personally, getting in a fight and all stuck up in it and all tangled up in it, which doesn't really make any room for you to open to the other possibility, and therefore allow the body, the being, and the mind to be in a much more resourceful state to allow these things to pass, or at least for you to have a good time anyway. All right, number 9, I did say we got on to mothers. So when your mother makes one of her remarks, remember it's not personal. Our mothers, how we take our mothers personally. So it's one of those things. It's kind of classic. Maybe you have a wonderful relationship with your mother. I'm very happy for you if that's the case. But there is, or you could include mother-in-laws here as well, by the way, if you really want to hammer it home. But there's that thing where, parents are over for Christmas dinner, and mum mentions how the potatoes are a little underdone. And it just kind of cuts you to the core. And you can take that very, very personally. So I'm going to give you a way to, a metaphor, a way to look at it, which is really good in general for when we take on other people's stuff. Again, that's similar to in the supermarket or someone throwing harsh words your way. It really says more about her than you. But one way to a visualization you can use is to imagine that you visit, an old school lunatic asylum. Okay, and that's not very PC in the whole mental well-being world. But bear with me; it's a metaphor, right? I'm painting a picture. So old school in a movie, lunatic asylum, and you're walking down the aisles, and you're visiting a bit like a zoo. Okay, you're going there because you're visiting a lunatic asylum, and you walk past one of the doors. And one of the lunatics runs up to the door, screaming, hair wild, again, totally stereotypical, I know, own it completely, and says, "Oh, your potatoes are underdone. Your potatoes are underdone." In that moment, you'd be like, well, it's just a lunatic being a lunatic. I have no idea what they're talking about. It's not about me, right? It's not about me. So if you can have that metaphor slightly in your mind, if your mother's in off remark modes, it's just her having a lunatic moment. It's okay. And you know what? Fundamentally, it's not about you. All right, that was number 9. Number 10, still on Christmas Day. So if you don't win any of the cracker pull-offs, remember it's not personal. So I don't know how many of you get the hump when you don't win any of the cracker pull-offs. Probably not. But it speaks to that sense of not getting what you want. It speaks to that sense of competition or comparison. These are areas where over the festive period we can take things very personally. And again, similar to what we talked about in the sort of attraction, they're not getting the snog at the Christmas party one. You can look at it in terms of, if that or similar things are an issue for you, you can look at what is the identity that you've taken on. Maybe it's identity that, I'm a loser, right? If you take on that idea, even if it's sort of hidden and subtle, but it's there in you, then you're going to reflect that. You're going to express it. The universe is going to respond accordingly. So no wonder you didn't win any of the of the cracker pull-offs. But fundamentally, it's not personal. You don't have to take that on like it's a personal insult. And if you do, then there's something to be looked at that's a bit deeper. So just have some fun with those cracker pull-offs. You know what? Another practical response to that is say, "You've got 3 toys. Can I have one?" And unless they're really awful, guys will go, "Sure, yeah, I didn't want that rubber anyway." Well, so there we go. So, finally on Christmas Day, and it's number 11 on our 14 Festive FUBARs. So, when your family gets fractious over Christmas, remember it's not personal. So, again, the weather analogy works really well here. So, if there's this if fractiousness is kind of an energy, it's like a cloud that's hanging around the family, and some of them are catching it because these energies can be quite contagious. You don't have to get caught up in it even. So, it really is possible to be in a place where you're not tuning into that energy. And in fact, you can be a beacon of sanity in the lunatic asylum when that fractiousness is kicking off. Because if you get tangled up in it, if you make it about you, if you take it on personally, then you're just going to be adding into it and adding to the energy of that wave. You're going to be adding to the fractiousness in the household. So the wonderful story of one of the NPA customers, one part of the NPA community, and she told a story. I'm not sure if it was a Christmas, but it was a dinner party basically, and a family were around, and everything was kicking off around the dinner table. And she thought, sod this for a game of soldiers. Took herself off to the loo, and thought she'd do an NPA process. So it took her just a couple of minutes while she was having a pee, because that's how easy it is to use NPA. While she's having a pee, just an NPA process. And she said she stepped out, and it was like she stepped into a different universe. Somehow by her catching the sense that it's not personal, that she could experience something else. It's kind of one of those NPA miracles, really. She stepped out of the loo, and it was as if somehow everything had got resolved. It's almost like, and I sometimes sort of, a little bit joking, a little bit for real, say that NPA lets you sort of jump into parallel universes. So she went like Mr. Ben. If you remember Mr. Ben, if you're old enough to remember Mr. Ben, I've got to explain it now, haven't I? Now I've mentioned it. Mr. Ben was a program when I was a kid where Mr. Ben would go into he'd walk down the street with his bowler hat on, go into a costume shop. He'd step into the changing room, put his costume on, and he'd enter the world, or he was going to the jungle, or whether he was going to New York or somewhere, whatever outfit he was wearing. So, so it's a bit like that. Debs went into the loo like Mr. Ben and stepped out into the world where that fractious energy had just kind of disappeared all by itself. All by itself being part of one of the symptoms, again, that I see, or one of the indicators of the power of NPA. So that's Christmas Day, folks. How about Boxing Day? Well, you know what? If they forgot, number 12, by the way, if they forgot to call you, remember it's not personal. So you know what it's like. Someone who's important to you doesn't call you on Christmas Day. Come Boxing Day, you're a bit like, nah, they haven't called me. And it's very easy to take that stuff personally. Now, I'm not diminishing the fact that these things, there are things that matter to you, relationships that matter to you, or that it can feel sad and disappointing if someone we care about doesn't reach out. But still, the invitation here, remember, these are all invitations to remember it's not personal. It's remember there's a choice not to add the suffering on top by making it about you. So there are some just practical thoughts you can have. Maybe they're tied up, maybe they're busy with something or whatever. But fundamentally, it's not. One way of saying it's not personal. It's saying it's not your fault. You're not responsible. And you might say, well, I'm not saying it's about me. I'm just saying that they're a bugger for not calling. But I think if you really look at the mirror of that, what's irking you inside, what's causing you to have those outward expressions of blame or accusation, or how the disappointment comes out that way, is that inside it's touched you somehow. So that disappointment really is very much within yourself, or the hurt is very much within yourself, which links back to your meanings that you're giving these things. And those meanings are meaning something about you, about who you are as a person, or who you are and how you've behaved, all those kind of things. So if they don't call you, remember it's not personal. So last but one, number 13, as you nurse a hangover, remember it's not personal. Overdid the eggnog? So similar to headaches, hangovers, and bee stings and all sorts, NPA is amazing for these things. So, a hangover is a physical detox of some kind. Now, if you have gone on an absolute bender, chances are there's going to be some impact on your body. But the thing is, how we experience that can be very affected by the story we tell about it, including if we take it personally, again, becoming a victim of it. So So really allowing yourself to recognize that, well, it's not personal. What that does is it means you hold it lightly. You're not in resistance to it. You're not getting tangled up in, oh, I'm a bad person, I shouldn't have done that. Whatever the story is, or I'm the one who gets hangovers and everybody else gets away with it. Oh, how very dare they. Just not taking the hangover personally is a way actually to allow it to pass much quicker. It puts the body in a state where it can do what it does and what it will need to do to deal with the excess alcohol and food and whatever else you've put down your gob over Christmas, to deal with that a lot more efficiently. All right, which brings us to number 14. If you're stuck in Boxing Day traffic, remember it's not personal. Now, these days, to be honest, there's traffic on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. The least there is in this country. When I was a kid, it was Boxing Day traffic that was the thing to look out for. People generally, the roads were pretty empty. I remember sometimes we went to houses on Christmas Day and the roads were delightfully clear, not so much now. But traffic in general, I mean, and of course, this works all year round with traffic. So why on earth do we think that we can control when, where, and how everybody else drives? I mean, really. But that's what we do. We can't, folks. I'm sorry, it's bad news. But when you take traffic personally, it's basically what you're saying. It should be different than it is. In other words, I should have complete control over other people's choices and behaviors so I can set things up to suit me. So you're hiding to nothing. I love what Byron Katie says. She says, when you fight reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. God love you, Byron Katie, for that one. So if you're sat in traffic, don't take it personally. Don't get tangled up in what should and shouldn't happen. Don't get a sense of, why is it happening to me? Don't get a sense that it's somehow these people have all come out just to piss you off on Boxing Day. These are the kind of ways that taking it on personally, getting involved in it, tangled up in it, getting sticky with it, can really cause you a lot of stress. So just take a moment, chill in the traffic, dude. It's Christmas. You will get there, and it's that you arrive wherever you're going that's important. So there you go. There's my 14 FUBARs, festive FUBARs to not take personally. So overall, I think the general message is Christmas. Don't take it personally. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Well, goodness gracious me, I thought this was going to be a short episode, but we're already about 42 minutes in. Thanks for sticking with me. So thank you, in fact, just for listening, for taking the time. I hope you're enjoying your December and that it's running smooth. So just a quick couple of things then. Just remember to go and get the NPA sheet. If you haven't got that already, go to beabrillianthuman.com/NPA sheet, November Papa Alpha. And do, if you're curious about NPA, go ahead and just really invest in that core training. It's a fabulous offer there on that page, and it will teach you how to use the process and how you can use it sort of throughout the festive season and beyond for the rest of your life. God damn it, for a few quid. And it really does make a difference. And those people that do use it a lot, they do find they get to put on their it's not personal glasses, and you do step from Velcro world where you really do take on other people's stuff, to letting it kind of slide through and having a full of life and experience and juiciness, but without all of that sort of sticky stuff to get you bogged down. And also, just remember, stay after the moo. In fact, moo. If you want to hear that Christmas song, if you're still with me after all this time, have a listen to that for a bit of fun. And of course, my Christmas ask this month. Obviously, I would love you to subscribe, send me a message with feedback, and do share if you enjoyed the show. Come along to NPA Rocks. Find me on YouTube. But the ask really is to share the new website, the beabrillianthuman.com, to share it. Tell the folks why you love it. Assuming you love it, you're still listening, and why you think it will benefit them to listen to this podcast. You can just share, type in beabrillianthuman.com. If you want to share this episode specifically, or beabrillianthuman.com/10, or whatever other episode you feel would be a good starter for people. I would love you to do that for me as my Christmas present. Thank you so much. And I am getting feedback from people mostly by email and on social media, interestingly. So thank you for those of you who are getting in touch and saying they're loving the show. Anki this week sent me an email saying that she loved the show, and I haven't got it in front of me, so I can't say it verbatim, but she basically said, "Have you ever been asked to do a radio show? I love your voice." Thank you so much. No, come on, BBC, get in touch. So there we go. Right, that's it for me. So next week we're continuing the theme. I'll be taking a look at bar humbug syndrome. Never mind imposter syndrome. We're going to look at bar humbug syndrome, finding your happy Christmas. So I will see you. That'll be out next Tuesday. I will see you then. Otherwise, have a fantastic week. Listen to the song.
Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. No matter what religion you're from, your heart has only one song. A single message has come from above. In every heart, the story of love. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. No matter what kind of person you are, could be a beggar, could be a czar. A single message has come from above. In every heart, only this love. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again.
And when it's late September and Tesco's puts out Christmas food, and the last thing that you're feeling is a happy Christmas mood, and you feel that black derision that settles like the dark, instead decide to love yourself. Open up your heart.
Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, find love. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, open up your heart. It's Christmas time again. Open up your heart, open up your heart. It's Christmas time again. your heart. Open up your heart.